Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make a savoury dish, and this is going to be chicken ruby or Dishoom chicken ruby. Dishoom is a restaurant chain mainly in London, but also with restaurants in Edinburgh and Bristol and maybe a couple of other places, which has a very good reputation for Indian or some types of Indian cuisine. And the recipe I'm doing is chicken ruby. Now, Dishoom published a cookbook of their restaurant recipes, and I have a copy of that, and in that it explains that chicken ruby gets its name from Cockney rhyming slang for curry, which is Ruby Murray curry. So that's why they called it chicken ruby. But it's very similar, if not exactly the same, as butter chicken by all accounts. Now, I've never had buttered chicken in my life, so I can't attest to that. But from those who have had it, they say this is very similar, and it implies that in the recipe in the book. So, it's not a difficult recipe, but it's going to be done over 2 days because we make a marinade, and we marinate the chicken overnight or for up to 24 hours before we cook it. Then we need to make a Makhani or Makhani sauce, which is a spicy sauce in which everything gets combined. So I'm going to go on to the ingredients for the chicken and the marinade to start with, and then tomorrow I will go on to the ingredients for the Makhani or Makhani sauce, so that we can keep those separate. So for the chicken and the marinade, I have 750 grams, which is 1 pound 10.5 ounces. I've actually got slightly more than that, of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, which I've cut into pieces. The Dishoom recipe recommends 4 centimetre pieces, which is about 2-inch pieces. I have about 20 grams of butter, which I will melt when I need it. I don't need it at the moment. And I'm going to use 50 millilitres of cream, which is 3 tablespoons and 1 teaspoon. And I don't need that at the moment. I need those tomorrow once this chicken has been marinated. And then for the marinade, I have 75 grams, which is a scant 1/3 of a cup of Greek yogurt. I have 10 grams, 2 tablespoons of grated fresh ginger. I have 20 grams, 2.5 teaspoons of grated or finely chopped garlic. I have 10 millilitres, 2 teaspoons of vegetable oil, 10 millilitres, 2 teaspoons of lime juice, 5 grams, half a teaspoon of sea salt. The recipe calls for fine sea salt, but I've got coarse sea salt. It would be fine, I'm sure. It would be okay, should I say. Then I have 1 gram, half a teaspoon of garam masala, 3 grams, 1.5 teaspoons of ground cumin, and 2 grams, 1 teaspoon of degi mirch. Degi mirch is a chili powder, and it has a flavour very similar but slightly milder than Kashmiri or to Kashmiri chili powder. So you could use Kashmiri chili powder if you wanted to, but you can easily obtain degi mirch. But if you don't have that, this is going to impart, as well as the flavour, a lovely colour, as you can see, and I'm going to use more of it later. So that's all the ingredients for the chicken and the marinade, apart from 1 portion of Makhani sauce, which we're going to make tomorrow. So let's make the marinade, and the recipe I'm following says to process this or blitz it in a processor, which I'm not going to do. That's because I have grated my ginger and my garlic, and I don't think I need to dirty a processor to do any more than that. So I'll put my yogurt into a bowl with the lime juice and the oil. I'm just going to give those a mix around. And then I'm going to put all the other ingredients in. And I'm going to mix those until everything is fully combined. And that has it all combined. Now, you could process that. You could use your immersion blender to process it as well if you want to, but I don't think it's necessary. So I'm going to put that into my chicken. And then I'm going to toss it around. Now, you could use your hand, but I'm actually going to stir it around with a spatula, simply because I don't like getting my hands in the chicken. I'll have to do that sometime tomorrow, but not today. So I'm just going to stir that until all of the chicken is coated in this marinade. And that's good like that. So then I'm going to cover that with some plastic wrap. And I'm going to put that into the fridge. And I'm going to leave it until tomorrow. But in any event, it needs to be left for at least 6 hours. That's to get all those lovely flavours into the chicken. And I will come back tomorrow and we will cook the chicken, make the Makhani sauce, and then assemble the chicken ruby. So it's now the next day and my chicken has been marinating in the fridge. So I'm going to go on now to make the Makhani or Makhani sauce, which is going to be used to flavour the chicken, the ruby chicken. So I'll go straight onto those ingredients. And for this I have 15 grams, 2 teaspoons of salt, 20 grams, 2 tablespoons of freshly grated ginger, 20 grams, 2 tablespoons of freshly grated garlic, 15 grams, which is about 2 tablespoons again, of chopped garlic, and I've chopped that in reasonable size chunks, but they're small chunks but reasonable size. I have 800 grams, which is about 28 ounces of a very nice passata. The Dishoom recipe says 800 grams of tomatoes or tinned tomatoes, which you're then going to blitz in a processor until you have a nice smooth paste. Well, on the basis that I have a nice smooth paste or sauce, tomato sauce, in my passata, that's what I'm going to use. I have 3 grams, 1.5 teaspoons of Degi Mirch. That's that lovely curry powder. Now you could use Kashmiri chili powder if you wanted to, slightly stronger, or you could use another curry powder, but this one apparently gives good flavour and a nice colour. I have 20 grams, 1 tablespoon of honey, 175 grams, 3/4 of a cup of vegetable oil, and I'm going to use 80 millilitres, 1/3 of a cup of double cream. And then I have 2 bay leaves, and I'm using these Indian bay leaves, which you may be able to see have 3 veins, 1, 2, 3. They're different to the bay leaves, the more traditional bay leaves, but being as this is an Indian dish, I'm using Indian bay leaves, but the normal ones will be fine. I have 2 black cardamom pods, 6 cardamom pods, the normal ones, and 2 cinnamon sticks. Then I have 2 grams, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 2 grams, 1 teaspoon of garam masala, half a gram, which is 1 teaspoon of dried fenugreek leaves, which I have rubbed between my fingers to make them very powdery. And if you can't get those, but you have fenugreek powder, you could use some of that. I have another half a gram, which is half a teaspoon of dill fronds. So this is fresh dill, and I've just pulled a few of the fronds off. 20 grams, 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. And here I have 30 grams, which is slightly over 2 tablespoons of butter. So that's all the ingredients for the sauce, the Makhani sauce. So we'll go on to make that now. And the first thing I've done is I've put my oil into a pan, and I'm just beginning to heat that up. And as that heats up, I'm going to put in my 15 grams of chopped garlic, because I want to cook that for a few minutes, and not on a high heat, but as the oil heats up, it will begin to lightly brown the pieces of garlic, and as they're lightly browned and become a little bit crispy, I'm going to take them out of the oil and put them on some paper towel to drain them, and then set those aside for later. And the Dishoom recipe implies that this should take 7 to 8 minutes, which is why I've put the pieces of garlic into the oil while it's not hot, because if I put it into hot oil, they will brown in less than a minute. And as you can see, my garlic has now browned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that out and transfer that onto some paper towel. And as that drains, I have my oil on a medium heat. I'm going to put in my bay leaf, my cardamom, black cardamom, and the cinnamon, and I'm just going to let those cook until they start to crackle for about a minute. And as that happens, I'm going to put my ginger and my grated garlic onto the plate that I had those spices on. I'm just going to give those a little mix together so that they form a combined paste. So I'm just going to mix those so that those flavours are combined. That's good. I'm going to reduce the heat after a minute, and I'm going to put my garlic and ginger paste in. And I'm going to cook that on a low heat for about 5 minutes. And I'm going to be stirring it so that it doesn't stick or burn. And having cooked my ginger and garlic paste for 5 minutes, I'm then going to add in my tomato. I'm just going to stir that around, and then I'm going to add in my salt and my Degi Mirch powder and stir it again. And I'm going to bring that to a simmer, and then I'm going to let it simmer nicely until it's reduced by about half, and that should take about 30 minutes. So I'll bring that up to a simmer and then I'll show you. And that's starting to simmer, so I'm going to simmer it on a good simmer for 30 minutes until it reduces in by about half. So I've reduced that by about half, and now I'm going to put in my sugar, my garam masala, the ground cumin, the dill and the fenugreek leaves. And I'm also going to add in at this stage my garlic, which I cooked off earlier. Give those a stir around. And I'll add the butter as well. And then I'm going to cook that for 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, I'm going to turn it off, because the last thing I'm going to put in is my cream and then my chicken. But my chicken is not ready yet, so the cream will be added just before the chicken goes in. So I'll cook this for 15 minutes and then turn it off, and we'll turn our attention to the chicken. There was one ingredient I forgot to put in at that stage, and that was my honey. So I'll just stir that in. And then cook it for the 15 minutes. So I've cooked my Makhani sauce as it is, and I'm not going to cook it any further at the moment. I've removed the bay leaves, the 2 types of cardamom pods and the cinnamon sticks from it, and I'm going to pour in 80 millilitres, which is 1/3 of a cup of cream, double cream that is, or heavy cream. And I'll give that a stir through. Then I'm just going to set that to one side for a moment. I will cook that more a bit later, but I'm just going to stir that through. And there's going to be a little bit more cream going in later on as well. I'm still looking for a cardamom pod that I can't find. And I have to warn the people that are eating this to beware of that if I can't find it. So I'll just cover that and set that to one side while we work on the chicken. And what I've done is I've put the chicken onto a couple of trays, and the Dishoom recipe says to put these on the trays on a rack under a grill. And if you're in North America, that means under the broiler. It doesn't mean on a griddle pan. So I've done that, and I'm just going to take the 20 grams of butter, which I mentioned right at the beginning of the ingredients, which I said would be melted. I'm just going to brush a little bit of that on each piece of chicken. And that's good enough. So I'm going to put that under a medium grill, and I'm going to cook them until they're cooked all the way through and they begin to sort of darken on the exteriors and on the corners and such like, maybe looking just that slightly little bit charred. And then I would take them from under the grill and would be ready to combine those with our Makhani sauce. So I have cooked my chicken. I did it in 2 batches, and the temperature reached 90 degrees Celsius, which is 194 Fahrenheit, something like that, on some of the pieces, and just below on others. So perfectly well cooked all the way through. Chicken thigh is safe to eat at 75 degrees Celsius, so I know that mine is cooked all the way through, but it's still very, very tender. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the heat under my Makhani sauce and cook that for 5 minutes with the cream in as I added it earlier, and then I'm going to put the chicken in and cook it for a further 10 minutes. So I'm just going to bring that up on a gentle heat until it starts to simmer, and then I will simmer it gently for 5 minutes. So I've cooked the sauce with the cream in for 5 minutes, and I'm now going to put my chicken in, and I'm going to stir that around, get that all coated, and then I'm going to add in about 50 millilitres of cream, so 3 to 4 tablespoons of cream, as much as you want really, I suppose. And I'm just going to eyeball it like that, and I'm going to bring that to a simmer again, and I'm going to simmer it for 10 minutes. Then I will serve some up onto a plate for my dinner and show you what it looks like. So I've plated up some of the chicken ruby with some rice, and I've put some pomegranate rubies or pomegranate seeds on the top and a little bit of coriander. Dishoom also recommend some little sticks of fresh ginger, but that would be too strong for me. So I'll show you what mine looks like. And it seems to have baked up, or seems to have cooked quite nicely. So I'll have a taste of the chicken with a little bit of the sauce on it. Very, very nice. The chicken's nice and tender and juicy, and that sauce has a little bit of heat, but not overpowering heat. I don't like very spicy food. Just that little bit of heat, very full of flavour. So this is the first time I've tasted this type of butter chicken, and I have to say that single taste is very, very good. So I'm going to enjoy this for my dinner. That's it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there'll be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.